Good morning, Radioland. My name is Patrice Harris. I am the Corporate Communications Manager at SKELEC. I want to thank you for tuning in to another edition of PowerTalk. PowerTalk is a radio program that SKELEC uses to provide updates as to what's happening at the company and just to do some general public awareness about some of the different challenges that we might encounter or some of the different processes and services that we have. Today I have with me a very large panel which will speak to the topic of illegal connections. I'm going to allow each of my panelists to introduce themselves this morning in no particular order.
Okay, I'll start. Good morning. My name is Ms. Desiree Sider. I am the supervisor / customer service manager acting.
Okay, good morning. My name is James Francis. I'm acting superintendent of police in the crime directorate.
Good morning. I am Ian Walters, metering department senior technician.
Alright, so this morning our panelists are going to touch on the topic of illegal connections. If you have been tuning into our radio program month by month, for every edition, you'll recognize that we tend to tap into the conversation of illegal connections, but we wanted to designate an entire program to discuss that. Now, when we think of illegal connections, in very layman's terms, we're speaking about persons who are stealing power from the grid, which means that SKELEC is not billing you for the power that you are using. And that is of concern to SKELEC for many reasons. As you are aware, we would have started our disconnection drive at the beginning of the year. And as a result of that as well, we recognize that some of our customers who might not have done reconnections, they would have opted to start stealing. And that's not something that we want to encourage in any shape or form or fashion. So power that is not being billed, anything that is being stolen, is an illegal connection. Now, one of the things I want persons to understand is that the legislation states that SKELEC is the supplier of electricity. So I know there might be instances where you think that you're just loaning a drop card to your neighbor or you're assisting here and there, but that is actually stealing. Persons who intentionally try to bypass our meters or tamper with our meters, these persons are stealing. These persons who tap on their own wires to our cables, these persons are stealing as well. Tapping on to your neighbor's supply, that is stealing. Tampering with our meter or trying to reconnect our meter on your own, that is stealing. And that is of major consequence to the company and to the customers as well, and we're going to talk a bit about that later on. Now, in the detection of illegal connections, we usually solicit the assistance of the police when there are some different scenarios, and that is why we invited the acting superintendent Francis here with us this morning to try to discuss and explain what is the role of the police in the detection of illegal connections. So talk to me about that, Mr. Francis.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to say good morning to all the listeners out there, both on the radio and on the internet in several different mediums. With reference to the role of the police in connection with SKELEC, the police would have several different roles, but the main role would be a supportive role. They would support SKELEC in carrying out their duties. The legislation indicates, there are certain legislation, the electricity supply legislation speaks about SKELEC and the powers that the governing body has with reference to electricity. And from time to time we would find that when SKELEC is doing their duty, some of the workers would encounter some challenges such as providing that they have identified themselves to the particular the general public or the individual they're going to, and they have shown their relevant ID and they have stated their purpose of being there. Some persons would insist that they are not allowed on their premises, but the law allows them to enter your premises providing they have properly identified themselves and they're there for for business, and you have to allow them because their meter is on your property. You are using their electricity, and they have to come there for whatever reason. So when you find that challenges, the SKELEC encounter challenges such as these, that's where they call in the police. The police is there to enforce the law and enforce the law that governs the federation, and the SKELEC have particular laws and powers, and we are there to enforce it and make sure that everything runs smoothly, and to prevent any criminal activity, to prevent SKELEC from being hurt, to prevent citizens from being hurt, and to ensure that everything runs along smoothly. That's mainly the role of the police as a supportive mechanism.
I'm happy that you were able to highlight that this morning, Acting Superintendent Francis, because many times we have situations where we are encountering difficulties getting onto the properties of individuals, and I'm happy that we're able to state today that we have the statute, the legislation that gives us that authority to enter. So people come up with their own techniques. It might be dogs or barbed wires or locks, gates and whatever, but the statute gives us that permission to be able to enter the property once we are properly identified. Once you can see a SKELEC ID, each member of staff has a SKELEC ID. They should also be clothed in a SKELEC uniform. So these are things that you should be looking out for. And if we encounter this type of resistance, we solicit the support of the police.
Indeed.
And they always willingly assist us in that regard.
Yes.
Well, we started to talk about the legislation.
Yes.
What else does the legislation say regarding illegal connections?
Okay, to go on a little further, number 11 of 2011, St. Christopher Electricity Supply Act, and number 24, section 24, speaks about fraudulent abstraction. And if you permit me to read some expression from the section, and 24.1 say, any person who maliciously or fraudulently abstract, cause to be wasted or diverted, consumes or uses any electricity, commits an offense of larceny, and shall be liable on summary conviction to a fine of $5,000 and $100 for each day that the offense continues unabated, or to imprisonment for a term of 2 years. So lastly, basically stealing. So if you're stealing electricity from SKELEC, you can be fined. 24.2 say, where electricity is fraudulently abstracted by a corporation. So first talk about individuals, now talking about a corporation. The corporation shall be liable to a fine of $10,000 and $225 for each day that the offense continues unabated. So basically this is what the section says about fraudulent abstraction. And to go on a little further, section 38, and I would read 38.2 and 38.4. And 38 speaks about damaging electrical plant to cut off supply and stealing electricity. Now 38.2 says, any person who unlawfully obstructs or causes to be obstructed or diverts or causes to be diverted any electricity or consumes or uses any electricity which has been unlawfully obstructed or diverted commits an offense and is liable on summary conviction to a fine not exceeding $5,000 or to imprisonment for a term not exceeding 3 months, and in addition to such fine or imprisonment shall be liable to make payments of any damages awarded by the court to the supplier in respect of the electricity which has been obstructed or diverted. And 38.4 says, if upon any premises or property in the occupation of a consumer there is connected or adjacent to any electrical line, any wire or device capable of wrongfully obstructing, diverting, consuming or using electricity, the existence of such wire or device shall be prima facie evidence that such consumer has unlawfully obstructed or diverted the electricity. So these are the sections that we are talking about this morning, specifically to the issue of stealing electricity. These are the legislation, and there are other legislation as well within this particular number 1 of 2011. But it is important for the general public to know that stealing electricity is wrong.
One of the things that I gathered while you were reading is that even if you were not particularly the individual that committed the act, once you're consuming the electricity as well, you are liable for a criminal conviction as well.
Yes, that's what the act is saying, basically. So it's not only the person who commits the offense, it's just like stealing. If somebody steals this hat and then sell it to somebody, the receiver is just as guilty as the person who does the stealing. So the person who received the electricity, knowing that they're not going into SKELEC and paying, they are just equally as guilty as the person who give them a chance and pull the power card and got them using electricity for 2, 3, 4 weeks, 2, 3, 4 months, and feel like they're going to get away. SKELEC is going to catch them.
Oh, SKELEC is going to catch you. SKELEC is going to catch you. So don't think that you are going to be innocent because, well, hey, me is the electrician or whatever. No, none of that. You, based on what the statute and the legislation says, you are using the electricity, so you are also going to be found liable because SKELEC is the only supplier of electricity. Okay, you can't decide that you're going to. The legislation doesn't allow for you to generate your own electricity and supply it to other persons. Loan it, sell it, whatever you do. So please be mindful of that because we don't want any sub stories when we come and we recognize these illegal connections. Now, Mr. Walters, you are one of those persons who is intimately involved in this illegal connections detection process. I want you to talk to me a bit about what are some of the consequences in terms of safety as it relates to illegal connections. Why is it we really want to discourage persons from doing this?
Well, in terms of discouraging persons from doing stealing or giving another person supply, people tend to like pass lines across from one yard to the other, and doing that they find telephone wires, anything they can find, and sometimes these wires have joining and so on. You use not electrical tape but maybe masking tape or that stuff, and you have kids moving back and forth in the yard. The wire might touch the fence, and the child might touch the fence and they will get electrocuted, and that is serious stuff going on. A lot of people do a lot of different stuff, and sometimes it could be you're in the yard washing water. You might be walking and you don't know what's going on. Your neighbor will run a line pass from one yard to a next yard to a next yard, and you don't know. And you could your mommy could be in the yard washing and she just get electrocuted.
And we don't want any instance about that.
Right,
That will make my job very difficult.
So you have to be careful with the wires running across and just putting wires in the ground just like that.
But the electrocution is one of the hazards, but there's also another hazard as well. The fires.
Oh yes, yes. A lot of people don't look at the size wire they use, the load, the amount of power that they use in the other when you're giving a next house power, and the wires tend to get hot, melt, and then depends on where you run it, it could cause a fire, and then the whole house could burn, and maybe you could damage your appliances also in houses, and then the first thing you're gonna hear is SKELEC. You know what I mean? These are the things that we keep telling people: do not try those things like running small lines, and first thing, you should not be running anything at all in the first place, right? So those are the things that will happen if you do use undersized cables and do these things.
All right, and outside of the safety hazards, the safety hazard, there's also a financial component. There are some fines that SKELEC issues. I mean, Ms. Ida will speak to this. There's some fines that SKELEC issues, and the acting superintendent Francis also mentioned earlier what the legislation speaks to. So, Ms. Ida, tell us about these fines, because if you're not deterred by a fire, and if you're not deterred by electrocution, maybe you think, oh, well, them things are going to happen, maybe the fine is going to deter you. So let's talk about the fines.
Okay, good morning again. When persons choose to connect themselves after being disconnected without approval from SKELEC, there is some fine that they have to pay. When SKELEC go out and we do our checks, our spot checks, and we realize that persons that were disconnected because of a raise, they decide to reconnect themselves, and we find out this, they have to pay certain fines. SKELEC normally fine customers who have been proven to be stealing electricity $1,500. This fine goes both ways. It goes to the person who's getting the supply and the person who's providing it. So it's $1,500 for both parties. Also, they would have to pay a reconnection fee. It's $100 for residential and $250 for commercial. We try to defer or tell customers there's other ways. You don't have to steal current. SKELEC offer other services that can help you to have electricity if you cannot afford to pay the amount that we are asking for. That is, some might say, oh, SKELEC is asking for too much money, but we have our prepaid, where you can come in, sit down, have a conversation with us, and we can put you on the prepaid program, where you pay a certain amount of money to keep your meter on, as they say, to power up your meter. So if you pay $50, say you pay $50 on the account, and you have an arrays, we try to work with you. $25 would go towards the outstanding arrays, and $25 would go towards powering up the meter. This will kind of help you to, I must say, conserve electricity, because now you're gonna say, I put $25 on my meter, I have to watch to see how am I using the electricity, what am I doing, and stuff like that. So that's a way for you to help to conserve electricity.
So we really don't want you stealing. Ms. Ida just spoke about one of the options that is available for you as a customer to ensure that you remain connected to the grid in the legal way. We don't want persons stealing, because one of the other issues that we have is that persons will be aware of stealing and they're not reporting it. And we want our customers to report it. But you don't have to be an electrician, Mr. Waters, and you're going to help me out here, to be able to identify stealing, right? What is it a customer can do to determine whether or not their power is being stolen? How can they know?
Well, there's different ways you could tell. If you well, some people, they have an extension coming directly from A to B, or what some people have is like a wire coming from the meter. Let's say you have, for example, 2 meters next to one another. What will happen is that if I disconnect one of these meters, right, the other person would come out and take a piece of wire and just come and just take a feed from your meter.
And you don't know.
And you don't know.
So what will be the indication for you to, I'm not sure, but I feel suspicious. What will be the red flag?
Well, you look the consumption, the consumption on the other bill. The person will say, okay, my bill is going up, something is wrong, and so on. And they will come into the office and they will request a meter check. And we will come and we do a meter check, and then once we do a meter check, we'll realize that there's something wrong, and then we will indicate to the person that, something illegal, the neighbor, and then we will take pictures and we will report back to the office, and then we will take the actions from that end. From customer service.
Yeah, because from what Mr. Walters said, they really have some customers that they don't know that somebody's tapping into their supply, and they might realize they used to pay $5 and now the bill increased by like $20. So that might be an indication to say, I normally pay this, what's going on? To come into the office, and then we will do a service order to get Mr. Walters and his crew to go out and check to see actually why is this person consumption increased from what it used to be. So that's a clear indication that something might be going on with your meter.
So we want customers to remain vigilant, especially paying attention to your bill. Paying attention to your neighbor, anything that looks suspicious, you're not sure. A lot of times the reports that we get about illegal connections are from persons within the neighborhood who are just looking like, oh man, I know this person got disconnected, but I see them back on and so forth. And these are the things that we want you to do. I know we live in a community where we like to say no snitching and no ratting, but it really can create difficulty for you as a neighbor, because it might be you that they're stealing from, it might be that they are overloading, or you might end up with some sort of low voltage, etc. So these are the reasons why we want you to be vigilant. We want you to make these calls to us to let us know about illegal connections. I don't even understand why you wouldn't want to, because you're paying for your power, I'm paying for mine. Yeah. So why should anybody want to have their power for free when you have to pay? Exactly. So to me, that's the easiest law of the land right there. That power, there's a cost to generate power, there's a cost to supply power, there's a cost to maintain all of our equipment, and the only way that we can recoup that is to ensure that we bring these illegal connections lower and lower and lower. And that's why we want our customers to report it. So Mr. Walters and Mr. Ed, I really want y'all to tell me about what is it that SKELEC is doing. We spoke about the first one, which is the spot checks. So we know the persons who are disconnected and we random. Well, y'all tell me about it.
Mr. Walters, I want to talk because
when they come around these spot checks, what we do, we when there is a disconnection, let's say we have for the month a few disconnections, we'll get a list of who was disconnected and who was reconnected, and then we will we do random checks. We don't say exactly when we're gonna come. We'll just decide, okay, let's go this afternoon, and we're gonna do a check in the area. We have a list, names and everything, and we'll go through, and then sometimes we'll talk to the customer. We'll realize that they have power, and we say, okay, we're here, we're doing a check and they have power, and we realize they have power, and they will talk with us. But we'll let them know, okay, you will be fined, and what is on. And some of them, they will say, okay, I understand, and we'll say, well, you will have to disconnect. We wouldn't just come and just disconnect you like that. We give you the opportunity to. We take pictures. We tell you you have to disconnect. Or first thing tomorrow morning, we'll have the a crew come out and have your supply disconnected from the pole. If there's both persons involved, which is the one that is giving you power, we'll disconnect both persons from the pole, and we'll make sure we take all the pictures, take it back to customer service, and then you will have to come in and pay the fine and all the necessaries before you get your electricity back. Sometimes what we ask, if we'll ask you to relocate your meter, depends on the location of the meter. So let's say, for example, your meter is in the house, and based on what we see, based on what is happening, we'll say, okay, before you get the supply back, you will have to make preparation to relocate the meter outside of the house or on the fence. That's what we will do. Or sometimes we even go late in the night. Go late in the night. Sometimes some people don't have one, everything, but in the night you will see the television going on and all sort of thing happening late in the night.
I'm sure you meet a lot of resistance when you go and do these spot checks.
Yes, we meet some of that, and sometimes we have to ask for the assistance from the police. Yeah, we had a few recently, and we had to ask for assistance from the police.
And they willingly assisted, right?
All the time.
Acting Superintendent Francis, I know that you mentioned that you might have to leave very shortly. I just wanted to give you a moment to share some final parting words before we continue with our conversation and really send that strong message. I think when they hear the police say it as opposed to Miss Harris in a nice soft voice, they might feel a bit more deterred that way. To the members of the public to not engage in illegal supplies.
Okay, from the police, we partner with several different agencies throughout the community. And SKELEC is one of the agencies that we partner with. and we value the relationship that we have with our partners. We value the relationship that we have with SKELEC, because it's not only the police is there to just enforce the law. Other persons are there to assist us. So therefore, when we are doing our job, enforcing the larcenies and the malicious damage, SKELEC is there enforcing the aspects of the law. So the police is an umbrella that enforces all the law of the Federation. So if for some reason SKELEC have an issue, we are always willing to assist, because our role is also to prevent any criminal activity. We want to prevent any criminal activity on the part of the customer that is stealing electricity. We want to prevent criminal activity in the part of SKELEC going to enforce the law and then something happened to some of the workers or something happened to one of the customers. So the police is there like a bridge to balance everything, and we are always willing to assist. And the workers and the persons in SKELEC would know the individuals they would call who are manning the particular department, who is out and patrolling all the time. So therefore they would be ready to cut the patrol and assist. So the police is always there to assist, because we want safety, and we want people to be honest. We want people to be honest we know things are hard sometimes, and I'm glad that the SKELEC is telling you how you can come in and make a little payment here, make a little payment there to keep electricity. But at the same time, because things are hard, that doesn't mean you can turn to being dishonest and stealing. So in my parting words, I would like to encourage persons to abide by the rules, abide by the laws that govern our land, and do what SKELEC is saying, because they are the suppliers. We don't want a place where we don't have any electricity at all. Then we're back to the Stone Age days. So it's a business, it's a company, and the company is doing a very good job, and we want the company to be doing what they are doing and giving us electricity, and we have to pay for the electricity. So no more stealing, and I hope when the guys find these illegal things happening, they will continue to call out to the police, and we will continue to respond and assist in the best way we could.
Thank you so much, Acting Superintendent Francis.
Permission to leave?
Permission granted.
Yes, because I have another engagement.
Yes,
Yes,
thank you so much for coming. So, to the members of the public, we want you to, I just want to echo the sentiments that would have been mentioned by the Acting Superintendent Francis, that it is very important that you continue to engage in an honest way. And things are hard, and there's so many things that we are doing to assist customers in this time. We had our slash year arrears promotion earlier in February. We have our DPA program that continues, that is ongoing. You can sign up for a payment plan. We can work with you. You can get your arrears down in 2 to 3 years depending on what you pay. There's also the prepaid option. So when we do all of these things for you, I would really prefer if you're not engaged in any sort of stealing, because it's a safety hazard. It's a lot of loss for the company. You can have a fire, you can be electrocuted, etc. Usually this program includes a call-in, and I really want to hear what our customers are saying today. So I'm going to encourage any interested caller, an interested listener rather, to call in, ask us your questions, and we'll be more than happy to assist you. I'll just wait to see if there are any callers. But as we await the callers to come in, Mr. Walters, I know we mentioned earlier that you are on the road a lot with this identifying illegal connections. I want you to tell us a bit of what you see, because people are getting very creative. And for how creative they're getting, I think they need to apply to SKELEC. What y'all think? We need to use that resource for ourselves. But what is it that you're seeing when you go on the road, Mr. Walters?
On the road, when we go out on the road, what we're seeing is like, guys, so you have some houses, for example, it might be a big house upstairs, downstairs house, and it's our lines are passing across the building. Okay,
we're gonna pause. Jiki just mentioned that we do have 2 callers, so we're gonna hear what the callers are saying. Good morning, caller.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have a question, and I have some information. Are you hearing me?
Yes, we are.
Yeah. You know, in these modern days, which I must say I am an inventor. I have found a way for every household to generate their own electricity. And it's not like any of those traditional that is existent. How about moving forward to come? I want to broadcast, spread the revelation how each household can generate their own electricity. No SKELEC, no lamp pole, just electricity you generate from your own home. I'm not talking about solar, because I've discovered the technology. How would that intertwine with a supplier that is supplying electricity to customers right now? Because it is there, the technology is there where every household can generate their own electricity. Even into each device that you may use in your home, your microwave, your refrigerator, your television, every device can be self-replenished. How would that work for a company like SKELEC?
Okay, caller, we want to thank you for your call. What I will say to you is that the current legislation does not support that. The current legislation speaks to having a public supplier's license, which means, and being deemed a public supplier. So the legislation does not support persons generating and supplying their own electricity. I know in other islands, especially, I know you mentioned not solar, but in other islands it is possible for you to have a solar panel and sell back to the grid, but our legislation does not allow for that. So if it is the case that you want to lobby for that to happen here in St. Kitts and Nevis, I will encourage you to rally that cause, but at the moment SKELEC is the only public supplier of electricity. Alright, then caller number 2. Good morning, caller.
A very pleasant morning to you and all your listeners. With respect to persons stealing electricity from the company, usually there is always a cause, and I am not going to try to justify robbery or stealing, but we live in a region where people are struggling socioeconomically and otherwise, financially. And sometimes people are more or less coerced or forced to do that because they cannot afford a pole. So I would like to find out if in instances like those, in cases like those, would the company SKELEC be willing to provide a pole for the village area where those people are struggling to come up with the funds or the cash to pay for the pole in order to get the electricity? And another question I would like to put to your company is, would you be willing to reduce, significantly decrease the cost of a pole for areas where people have to get electricity and they have to pay for a pole? Is it possible for the company to reduce the cost of the pole to make it more affordable for the consumers or the villagers in that particular area? I am going to listen to your response off here. Do have a blessed day.
All right, thank you, caller, for your call. You spoke about the affordability of the infrastructure, which includes the pole, etc. What I want to say is that at this point in time, the fees that SKELEC has for many of our services have not been revised in a very long time. So in many cases, it might be the case where we're not turning over a large profit from our services. And you have to also remember that we live on an island, which means that everything has to be imported. And with importation, there's shipping costs, there's duties, there are all of these things that would have to be accounted for with the cost of the infrastructure itself. So where it be a situation where we're turning over a large profit from the infrastructure and we could be able to offer that sort of support or discount, it might not be realistic immediately. But what I can do is encourage the persons who are in this situation to pen a letter to the general manager. There might be some level of assistance that we can provide for you, but I don't want for there to be a notion that there is a very, very large profit being turned over, and we recognize that electricity is a basic need of every individual. So whatever the company can reasonably do, we will be able to facilitate that, even if there has to be the support of the government, etc. therein. So I want that these persons to pen a letter to the general manager and see where you can get from there. You can only try. All right, are there any other callers, GQ? Do we have any other callers? We have 2 more callers. We're going to take these last 2 callers. Good morning, caller. You're on.
Good morning. I'm calling concerning a lamppost which is leaning.
A lamppost which is stealing? Leaning. Okay.
And concerning, I made a numerous report. I want to know what is the length of the time of making a report concerning this lamppost.
Can you tell me where this lamppost is?
At Dorset.
Dorset.
The lamppost, if you have on a number.
Are you aware of the pole number?
I'm not certain. Patrice, this is Carol.
Okay. Okay. So
the gentleman them came to clean the lamppost concerning some bushes and change the light. When they went up, they noticed the lamppost is rotting. They said they put in a report, but nothing has been done since.
Okay, I'll follow up on that for you, Carol. I'll follow up on that for you. I know, to be honest, sometimes the workload far exceeds the manpower and the resources that we have, but we really try our best to get everything done. So I'll follow up to see what's the next step on this. Thank you for calling and reporting. All right, next caller, the last caller. Good morning, caller.
Good morning once again. I just want to put the notice out there. I called before, and I would have liked to hear what SKELEC had to say in respect to what I mentioned about every household can generate their own electricity. I mean, in times of hardship, I think it is still backwards in electricity because you have ration. There are times one area is off, another area is on, and the technology that they have home needs to be upgraded a lot. But at the same time, I am coming home to sell or even give the technology to every individual who is interested in generating their own electricity. And it's, like I said, it's not solar, it's not diesel, it's not gas. Let me tell people, think it on the world. Electricity can run electricity. It's just a matter of how to circulate it. The other thing is, I have the project, I have a model, I have a prototype, and I went to get funding so that I could get a manufacturer to distribute this thing and develop it into a apparatus that could be used. And you know what I was told? And I demo it, I used the demo. They told me that I could be killed because the oil company is not going to see me through.
Okay, caller.
It's not going to see me through.
Caller.
But I'm coming to sell that technology and introduce that technology to.
Okay, caller. I want to thank you for calling. I know that you called earlier. We want to give as many callers the opportunity to be able to ask their questions and share their concerns, but the response will remain the same, that the legislation at the moment does not provide for that. SKELEC is not the composer, the drafter of the legislation. The legislation is drafted by the Parliament, and so that is a separate matter that has to be taken up on that front. You will have to lobby. There isn't anything that SKELEC can do in that regard. We're operating within the legislation number 11 of 2011, and there was also an amendment in 2015. I cannot continue to engage in a conversation about something that is not legally bound, that we cannot be legally bound to do at the moment. So I'm sorry that there isn't any further support that we can give to you on this matter, but the legislation does not support that at the moment. All right, thank you for everyone who called in this morning. I am going to allow my two panelists to share their parting words as it relates to the illegal connections, and just to send that strong message from the company, and we'll wrap up this morning's program. So who wants to start first? Okay.
Once again, we continue to deter persons from stealing electricity because, as I said earlier, there's penalties. I'm going to go through the penalties again. Once you come in, once we found that you're stealing and you have to come in to us, after being disconnected, you are required to pay the fee of $1,500. You're also required to pay the reconnection fee. You will also be required to clear the account, and SKELEC will backdate the account from when we disconnected you up to the point where we caught you stealing. You might say, oh well, I'm only doing it for a month. We don't know that. So we have to charge you from that period when we disconnected you to when we caught you. Sometimes we try to work with customers because times are hard, and we understand that. If you can't pay the entire account, we might tell you pay 50% of it, and then we'll work out something with you to pay the rest. If you opt not to do that and you want to go to our prepaid plan, we can do that also. But don't steal. Don't at all, because SKELEC is a company that works with customers, but when you start to steal from us, everything out the door. So come in, have a conversation with us. As I said, we know that times are hard and some people still are not working from the pandemic, so SKELEC would work with you. Don't steal from us, we'll work with you. You can always come in, you can ask for myself, Miss Ida, and have a conversation with me, and I'll try my best to work out to fit your pocket. But as I said, and I'll continue to say it, don't steal, because we're doing spot checks. We're coming out once we disconnect you and we realize you did not come in. Months pass, you ain't come in. So it's not normal for somebody to be out of electricity for so long and don't come in to say, I'm disconnected and trying to work out a plan to get back on. We're gonna catch you. In the evening, when you least expect it, when you have on your radio booming, your TV booming, SKELEC is gonna catch you. So please, and I'm begging you, don't do it. Just come in and we can work out something for you.
Thank you, Mr. Ida. Mr. Walters?
But what I will say is to the public is to try and not mess with the electricity's meters. Don't try and run any wires from one place to the next to create any anybody getting electrocuted or any fires. Try as much as possible to come in and talk with SKELEC, and they will talk with you, have a good conversation. Don't be scared. Come in, sit down, and they will work out something for you, and we're good to go. And we will come and we'll put your supply right back on. So that's about it.
All right, thank you, Mr. Walters, and thank you, Ms. Ida, for joining us on today's program. I really want to echo the sentiments mentioned earlier today. Please do not engage in any illegal connections. Please, if you know of anyone who is doing this, kindly report it. We're going to come out and conduct our investigation. One of the best ways that you can try to manage your utility electricity bill is by keeping your consumption low. Once you're below 200 megawatts per hour, kilowatts per hour, you receive a 50% reduction in your bill. So keep your consumption low and you will get a lower bill. If you have a high bill, come in and sign up for a deferred payment arrangement plan or sign up for prepaid. That helps you to better manage. But there's so many options that are available for you to stay above the law without resulting in stealing. As we wrap up today, I also want to express sincerest apologies for the island-wide outage that was experienced yesterday. We have not been able to identify the direct cause of the outage, but we did know that we encountered a difficulty in one of our substations at the Southeast Peninsula, and we are continuing our investigation so that we don't have a situation where we have any more island-wide outages. We want to do the maintenance that is required. We want to up our manpower. We want to get our resources, and we get that done by you paying your bills. So it's very important for you to be able to pay your bills so that that can contribute to the reliability of the company. Thank you for joining us for this morning's radio program. I'll see you again next month, and stick and stay to the nation's leading utility provider, SKELEC. Have a great day.